James May thinks he's a racing driver. Richard Hammond thinks he's Jesus. And I think I'm going to be killed. James May faces trial by water. Richard Hammond faces trial by fire. And I drive a Ferrari on the moon. Richard tries to start a motorbike. James fills his car with petrol. And I get a British Rail suntan. We throw a chair over a hedge. A quite interesting man drives our reasonably priced car. And for the first time ever, the Bugatti Veyron races the McLaren F1. We shout at the government. A man drives a Subaru through a building. And a dog goes in a car. I wear some goggles. Richard falls down a small slope. And James says hello to a man.
All right, mate.
Richard has a crisis. Some sheep on our track. And James and I go to the laboratory. James gets lost in a Lamborghini. Richard drives over a bridge in a Ferrari. And I wear a small hat in an Aston Martin.
They're on fire.
James catches fire. Richard knocks something over. And I crash a Reliant Robin into a lamppost. I wear a hat. Richard wears a hat. And James wears a hat. Richard wears a towel. James and I eat some crisps. And a fly is in our reasonably priced car. A dog won't get in a car. A flip chart falls over. And a man from Liverpool drives a car. A sausage gets burnt. A sheep falls over. And our track is all wet. A fat man gets murdered. A donkey gets overtaken. And James wears ladies' underwear on his head. Our track's a bit foggy. A man eats a snack. And we move about in a caravan. Richard wears a blue hat. James wears a different hat. And I wear a hat with things on it. Richard Hammond buys a cup of coffee. James May slips on some snow.
I hate snow.
And we show a picture of Steve McQueen. I find a bicycle in a river. James annoys a dog. And Richard jumps over a dike. I talk to two old ladies. Richard makes a phone call. And James sniffs his own armpit. I use a machine. James writes on a blackboard. And Richard lobs fruit into a caravan. I talk to a man in sunglasses. James draws a square on a wall. And Richard plays with a soldier's chopper. James asks a girl for a favour.
No.
Richard listens to a man. And I polish a bishop. I do a skid. Richard steals some tyres. And James gets kicked in the face. I drive around a field. James measures a runway. And Richard lays a cable. I wear a hat. James wears a hat. And Richard is behind a low wall. I point at a thing. Richard walks through a shop. And James has some bananas. I stop for petrol. Richard wears some sunglasses. And James sees some shirts. James draws on a board. Richard waves at a man. And I run away from a table. I hold up a jar. James points at a hill. And Richard eats a sandwich. I play tennis. Richard points at a minibus. And James shakes hands with two men. Dog looks over a wall. We drive some chairs. And the Stig does a skid in a supercharged Jag. I eat a cabbage. James throws a bird out of a car. And Richard forgets the abbreviation for America.
USB.
I sit on a rock. James gets something in his eye. And Richard says, "Mommy." Richard opens a glove box. James pulls a face. and I ask an important question.
Have you ever put toothpaste on your testicle?
I move my eyes. Richard vandalises a road,
There you go.
and James says cow.
Cow!
Richard tests a van. I drive an old brown Porsche, and James uses a telephone.